Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making carbonara spaghetti with a twist. Now if you've never made carbonara before, don't be afraid, it's a lot easier than you would think. So to start off, I'm going to be doing my favorite trick for securing my cutting board, which is using a damp paper towel so that way it does not slide around while I'm doing any prep work. The recipe is listed down below, and for this I am cutting it in half. So to begin with, I am going to dice half of an onion. Now you can do this any way that you like. For me personally, I prefer just to cut the onion in half, cut off the ends, and then peel the top layer back. From there, I'm just going to cut slices down lengthwise, and then I cross cut them horizontally. So the onion is the twist to this recipe. A traditional carbonara does not use onion, but the caramelized onion gives it an amazing flavor, so I really recommend that you try it if you haven't before. The next ingredient is bacon. For this, I like to use my kitchen shears to just cut it. It is so much easier than trying to do this with a knife. So if you've never used kitchen shears before, they honestly are just a great investment. They're not very expensive at all, but you can use it for jobs like this. I like to use it when I'm trimming like chicken, all sorts of different things throughout the kitchen, and it really honestly makes it so much easier. So here I went ahead and put 6 strips of bacon on top of each other, and I'm just going to cut it lengthwise and then go back and cut it in half. I prefer to do it this way versus cooking the bacon whole because that way I don't have to worry about breaking it up later. And for me, it makes it a lot easier to get an even cooking when we are putting them in the pan. Now into a cold, like the heat is not on, pot, I'm going to disperse those pieces. I like to try to break them up a little bit apart from one another when I put them in. It just makes it a lot easier to get them apart while they're cooking. Now for carbonara, you can use any type of meat that you want here. So I like to use bacon. Traditional recipes call for pancetta, but I prefer the flavor of bacon, and so does my husband. So that's what we like to use. Starting the bacon in a cold pan is essential. So whether or not you're a crispy bacon lover like I am, or you like it soggy, I hate that word, but that's how I think it is if it's not super crispy. You want to start it in a cold pan because that allows the bacon fat to render out and then crisp up. Once the bacon is cooked to your liking, I go ahead and remove that from the pan. You do want to leave the grease in order to cook the onions in because it adds a lot of flavor to the dish, but I did drain out the majority of it. You only want to leave a couple of tablespoons in there and then add your onions in and saute those down. Same thing, I like to cook this on like a medium heat in order to make sure that the onions can really caramelize and not just burn. While the onion is caramelizing, I'm going to whisk together 1 whole egg plus 2 egg yolks. And then to that, I'm going to add in half of a cup of Parmesan cheese. And this is what's going to create the sauce for the carbonara. And I like to have this mixed together and ready to go. It makes it a lot easier when you're in the process of putting the dish together at the end. Also, while the onions are cooking, I did boil water and cook my spaghetti so that it's ready to go. Once my spaghetti was done cooking, I drained it and then added it into the pan with the sauteed onions. And I'm just going to give that a toss around. My spaghetti was actually done a lot earlier than I thought it would be, so it kind of had cooled off. So I wanted to heat up a little bit in the pan before I add in the other ingredients. So now with the pan turned off, I'm going to go ahead and add in the egg and cheese mixture. Don't be afraid of this step. It's a lot less scary than you would think it would be. But once I put it in, I do go ahead and toss it into the pasta. I don't want to leave it sitting on top. That's where you can run into the risk of the eggs scrambling. But I'm telling you, I've made this recipe so many times and I never once have had a scrambled egg mess like I thought I would when I first read this recipe. So I'm going to go ahead and just toss that to combine. At this point, you want to go ahead and season your pasta. So I'm only adding pepper. You can add salt if you want to or if you feel like it needs it, but honestly, I don't think that it does. Once you add the bacon or pancetta, whichever you use into the dish, there's a lot of saltiness involved with those. Plus the Parmesan cheese has salt in it, but definitely just taste it and see what you think if you want to add that or not, but I recommend tasting first. At this point, I did decide that my sauce was a little bit too thick, so I'm going to put in a little bit of reserved pasta water. And I always like to reserve pasta water anytime I'm making any sort of pasta dish for this reason. You want to do that because the starch in the pasta water helps thicken the sauce as well. So it's not like you're just adding regular water and watering it down. It does add some thickness while you're thinning it out, which sounds very counterintuitive, but it works. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn my stove back on to like a medium low heat. And that's because I added a little bit more water than I meant to. And that's just going to help with the starches in the water to come together and thicken that sauce up a little bit for me. Then we're going to go ahead and add in our bacon and toss that together, and then our dish is going to be ready to plate. And here is the final carbonara spaghetti plated. I just topped it with a little sprinkling of Parmesan cheese. I really hope that you guys enjoy this recipe. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more cooking videos from me, and comment down below if you try this recipe.